I think we do have to move beyond just the focus group and the beta testing. I think that a lot of times the ideas and the experiences are way too fully formed before we even bring them to a beta testing group or to a focus group, and at that point it's too late.
This is Velocitize Talks, and I'm Eric Jones. I'm here with Tom Schonder, who's the CMO of Yes & Company. Tom,
Yes.
Great to have you.
Thanks so much for having me.
In one line, how would you describe Yes & Company, and how? What's your competitive differentiator as you see it in the marketplace?
Sure. So we see ourselves as a vertically integrated network of specialists. So the idea is that the agency that does it all is no replacement for the specialists that do it best.
I think that's, it's an interesting thing. Everybody's talking about the evolution of the agency model. What are the trends out there that you sort of saw that gave rise and, served as the catalyst for the creation of Yes & Company?
Yeah, well, I think that one sort of unique thing about it is this was a voluntary venture. So this was not a consolidation play, this was a collaboration play. So these 4 agencies all rose their hand to be a part of this. They were already part of the MDC network and family, and so it wasn't okay, we're going out and purchasing you 4 agencies and we're going to force you to work together and create efficiencies. It was, hey, you guys are already working together on a couple clients. You seem to be working really well with one another. You have complementary specialties. Would you all be open to discussing the idea of coming together to be a collaborative group of specialists who really are domain experts in each of your discipline? And they all really love the idea, and so that's how we came together. And I think that it makes sense in this time in the industry because the landscape is so complex, and I think that now more than ever you really do need specialists, and I think that specialists do it best, and kind of adding that collaborative layer of Yes & Company on top of these 4 world-class research, branding, digital experience, and digital media buying firms really creates a special place where we really have the client's needs top of mind, because it's not like we're forcing the sort of whole breadth of capabilities on a client. We're saying, okay, what do you need? We'll bring the right team for the right job to you.
Do you think those 4 areas of specialization, do you see them potentially expanding in the future?
Definitely. I think that we're not hiding that there are capabilities that we don't have in that group. So I think that we certainly will expand. We've found those to be agencies that worked well together already, really, really critical capabilities to launch with, but we certainly want to expand that. I think we also want to incubate some products and services within the group, especially as we see how well some of our digital marketing activities are working for our clients. We're thinking, wow, we'd love to kind of have a stake in some of these businesses, and so we're talking to clients about incubating new offerings based on new audiences that we help them find, and just doing more of what's working.
We were actually talking a little bit about the alignment of incentives and how brands today increasingly are looking for co-creation opportunities.
Yes.
How are you seeing that play out in your work?
I think that what you said is really critical, that the incentives have to align for that to make sense. And I think that can't be forced. That has to be, obviously you have to work at it, but also it has to be naturally there. And so I think that when those opportunities present, I think that we certainly will embrace that. And I think that it just it speaks to the idea of developing real, meaningful, lasting partnerships. And that's another thing that I think that our agencies do really well. I'd say specifically Hello, our digital agency, really develops lasting partnerships with their clients. And so I think that co-creation opportunities there would potentially make a lot of sense.
How, in that sort of along the creativity line, we have better tools than ever before at sort of analyzing and parsing data. How do you balance that, the sort of science of what we do from a marketing perspective with the art of it, where you are listening to the customers, you're thinking about the problems that you're trying to solve, and how do you ensure that your creative work, in fact, is new and unexpected and delightful?
Yeah, I think that it's a combination. Like, we have to give people what they want. But we also, some of the greatest breakthroughs are sort of more visionary moments where, you take a chance on something and it's not perfectly tested maybe. But I think that we do have to, we were discussing earlier, I think we do have to move beyond just the focus group and the beta testing. I think that a lot of times the ideas and the experiences are way too fully formed before we even bring them to a beta testing group or to a focus group. And at that point it's too late, right? You may be tweaking, you may be optimizing, but in terms of really creating a user experience that is designed to really meet the needs of the customer and the audience, you have to bring them into the process much earlier. And so I think that that's something we're focused on, is talking to the community, doing that insightful research as early as possible, and being more insight first. And I think that in terms of kind of thinking about the agency of the future or whatever, everyone talks about that, right? I think that really what we're trying to look at is the customer of the future, or the consumer of the future, right? Where what are our audiences going to be wanting, 2, 3, 5 years from now? How are their consumption habits changing? How can we learn from that and provide the experiences that they really want? So I think that, I think about kind of where we're going to be going. I think that, digital sort of used to be the tack on, or the, we got to deal with this, but we don't have enough people in-house to do it, so let's outsource this in a very tactical kind of way. I think that what we're seeing now is a much more strategic approach, that, okay, this is with digital transformation, the digital is at the core of our business. So let's be strategic, let's be insightful, and let's get the best possible people to help us. So this is no longer let's outsource this because it's a pain in the ass. This is core to our business. Let's get the very best people. And that's another reason we started what we started, is that we think that specialists do it best, and that if it is really core to your business, then you want to work with the most strategic, insightful partners who really are passionate about their domain area. And I think that it's difficult to be passionate about every single aspect of marketing right now. Yeah. There's so many, and I think that anyone says that they are an expert or they're passionate about everything is lying.
How should brands begin to think about, themselves on the voice shelf, right? It's entirely uncharted waters. How are you beginning to explore that?
I think that it's a good and actually easier conversation to have, because I think that more and more people are touching it every day, whether they're interacting with their, with Alexa or another sort of voice activated assistant. Even I think audio I'd put in there too. Like, I consume way more of The Economist now that their app provides an audio version of every single article. So when I'm walking around with my AirPods, I am consuming that because they have made that shift, and the Wall Street Journal maybe has not made that shift yet, so I'm listening to them. But in terms of the voice conversation, I think it's all around us, and I think that the way that we're talking to clients is that this is a more conversational sort of approach. This is not a direct message. This is, how do we engage in a real conversation, a back and forth, and this is going to be ongoing. This is not a campaign. This is not an initiative. This is an ongoing relationship. So how do you cultivate that conversation via voice?
More and more brands are competing based on the experience that they provide to their customers, their end users. How do you ensure that the experiences you're building for your clients, in fact, are completely breakthrough, enjoyable and fun and human, I would say?
Yeah, I think that it's easy to sort of look to technology innovations or platforms or devices first, but I think that really what we try to do is not fall into that trap. We want to utilize groundbreaking technology. We want to be pushing the boundaries, of course, but we want to not lose sight of what the main objective here is, and also not lose sight of accessibility. So how can we make sure that our audience, which usually people don't want to reach a significant audience unless we're kind of dealing with a more B2B example where it's very laser focused. Usually it is a broader audience, and how do we make sure that we get the message to them in a way that is easily digestible? And so I think that we look at it that way versus like tech first. We look at it more what's the need and what's the message going to be.
We live in an increasingly polarized world.
Yes.
Today, perhaps more than ever before. How do you counsel brands in terms of when it's appropriate to sit on the sidelines, when and how they engage with certain issues as they arise, assuming that the issue is in fact core to their business in some way, shape, or form? How do you navigate that?
I think the really critical point you made there was core to their business. And I think that there's a difference between having a purpose and feeling like you need to take a stand on the sort of topic or social issue du jour, right? So I think that companies should have a purpose, and if you don't have a purpose, you're probably don't have a great business already. So that's kind of table stakes, I think. But in terms of whether or not you should take a stand on every issue, I think that that is up to the individual organization. But I think the companies are made up of people, right? And I think that there are certain issues where the company is behind a certain side of an issue, and I think that if the company feels comfortable, they should join the dialogue and be outspoken. And I think that a lot of consumers want that. But I think it has to be organic. It has to represent the employees. And I think that before anyone can take a stand, they need to also make sure that they are living those principles and they are embodying them within their own company. So before you're going to take a stand on, having more, women leadership, you should look to your own organization and make sure, hey, are we paying people equally? Are we, doing everything that we can to promote, a more equal workplace? And look at yourself internally first. I also think that that it's impossible to take a stand on everything, and that you should sort of choose the issues that are most important to your company's guiding values. So what's your value set? Define that, and then decide where you're going to try to have a true impact.
That was Tom Schonder, the CMO of Yes & Company.
Thanks so much. Pleasure.